Hi, everyone. I'm Andrew Levenson, Director of Growth at MHP TeamSI. As part of our Ask an Expert series, I wanted to hop on and talk a little bit about iOS 15 and a couple of the measures that Apple is rolling out as part of that, specifically focused on privacy and how that might affect you as a CRM user if you're using Nurture or another CRM, and talk about some of the things that may be changing in the fall when Apple rolls out iOS 15. So if you're not familiar with Apple's recent push for privacy with some of their iOS 14 rollouts, they began really focusing on user privacy, really putting privacy specifically with data in the hands of the user. So giving much more control over how user data, if you have an Apple iPhone, how your data is really used by marketers and how your activities are tracked. So kind of sticking with that trend with iOS 15, they've announced a few additional privacy measures that have been kind of making rounds recently. So there are kind of three different main changes that are taking place with iOS 15. The biggest change, and the one I want to focus on today, is mail privacy protection. So the reason I want to focus on that is because it is the only feature they're rolling out that is free to everyone. So the other two kind of big features they're rolling out with iOS 15 are a paid feature, which from what I've seen are probably going to have a much smaller adoption than this free feature. So what mail privacy protection is, really it allows users to control if their email activity is tracked. So this is specific to the Apple Mail app. So that app, just as a note, has about 35% market share globally. So this in no way affects all users of the iPhone, all users who use the iPhone to check their email. It just applies to users who use the Apple Mail app. So basically what it does is it allows users to opt in to mail privacy features that allow their IP address to be masked and block third parties from tracking email opens or other IP data. So right now, most CRMs utilize IP addresses to be able to track activity, whether that be web browsing, email clicks, email opens, etc. But they also use email addresses as a unique identifier. So whether it be Nurture or HubSpot or many other CRMs, most of them use a combination of IP addresses and email addresses. So what this will do, number one, it will block IP address kind of tracking from within the Mail app. So if you are currently tracking activities via IP address in relation to email campaigns, then specifically email opens would not be able to be tracked. And then if you are going off of email addresses as the unique identifier, really the only thing that will be blocked are email opens. So I would say from iOS 15 as a whole, the biggest change that I see coming down the pipeline will be email opens and kind of a shift away from tracking that metric as kind of a KPI, just because it will be significantly harder to track, especially with users who are using this mail privacy protection. So that's really kind of a high-level explanation of what that feature offers. Again, it's only applicable to users who use the Apple Mail app, and only applicable to users who opt in to this through the app as well. It's not something that just is defaulted. They have to select that they would like to opt out of or opt into this mail privacy protection. So those are the couple of key points around that feature. Additionally, there are two more features that are part of Icloud Plus, which again, like I mentioned at the beginning, is a paid service. So Icloud Plus is basically just an upgraded subscription to iCloud that has some additional privacy features. So one of them is almost a VPN-like feature called Private Relay, which prevents sites from tracking Safari users who opt in and allows users to see which websites they're sending information to. So there's already services that you can use right now that kind of prevent sites from tracking you and also show you what websites are collecting data. But this is going to make it much simpler for users on this Icloud Plus subscription to be able to see that data. So the biggest change that would come from this, obviously, is any activity like behavioral or otherwise that you're tracking currently for Safari users that would no longer be able to be tracked. Again, if someone is on an iPhone using Safari with iCloud Plus subscription, this most likely is going to apply to a much smaller subset of users than what mail privacy protection will apply to. So that will really, again, prevent you from tracking like website activity, most activities that take place on Safari. But just as a note, Safari has already disabled cookies. They've disabled those actually, I think it was last year. So Safari already has had limited tracking within Nurture, within HubSpot, within any CRM. So the changes that would come from this would not be incredibly drastic or different than what has already taken place with some of the privacy measures from Safari. So additionally, this is another feature. This is specific to iCloud Plus, so this would be a paid feature that would apply again to a smaller subset of users than what mail privacy protection would apply to. The feature is called Hide My Email. So basically what this feature does is it is an email address cloaking feature that enables users to give sites a fake email address. So basically you could have a promotional email sent to this fake address and it would go to your email address, but it wouldn't kind of bog you down. It'd be much easier to unsubscribe from emails because you could basically just remove that cloaked email address. And then you could also, it really kind of protects your data because it's not tracking your actual email address, it's tracking this false email. So this would be fairly detrimental to the life of the lead functionality within Nurture. So right now in Nurture and in a lot of CRMs, there's functionality where you're able to track user activity based on their email address or their IP address. So if a user was using mail privacy protection and they were within the Mail app on iPhone and they had iCloud Plus, so there's all these kind of there are all these features that they have to be using in conjunction for it to be the most detrimental to tracking. So if they were using every one of these features and opted into everything, then theoretically you would not really be able to track any activity based on their email or their IP address. So in terms of like website activity, email opens, email clicks, a lot of these different activities would really become untrackable. But again, that's going to apply to a very small subset of users because they would have to use all three of these features kind of in conjunction with each other. So really some takeaways other than kind of explanations of what's happening. It won't affect all users. So like I've mentioned several times, first of all, like with mail privacy protection, only 35% globally of users that use email use the Mail app. And so it's a small kind of market share for that app. And for these other features, they would have to also like have the paid iCloud subscription and opt in to Hide My Email and opt into mail privacy protection. So it will affect a small percentage of users. It's not something that's rolling out to like everyone that has an iPhone. So it's a smaller kind of subset of people. Additionally, if you use open rate as a kind of a KPI for emails, that may be something that might need to be adjusted. So in the future, not only with iOS 15, but with other privacy measures, open rates may become harder to track. And so adjusting that goal, focusing more on click-through rates and clicks and activities that happen after the open may become more important. And then IP addresses are not the only unique identifier. So within Nurture and within HubSpot and other comparable CRMs, most of them will use email addresses as the unique identifier as well. So just because mail privacy protection is blocking the ability to track an IP address, an email address is still just as useful from a tracking perspective. So that was really what I wanted to share about iOS 15. So thank you for watching this video as part of our Ask an Expert series. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Thank you.